Hi everybody, it is Wednesday, January 11th, 2012. Thanks for stopping by. I have a very ambitious goal today, and that is to summarize the situation in Palestine, how I got involved in it, and tell you the solution to it in less than 10 minutes while your head is continuously exploding from the information that you will not believe, that you cannot possibly believe the first time you hear it, but it's the absolute truth. And none of what I'm saying is about hate or blame or exclusivity or tribalism. It's just facts. So the reason why I got involved in this issue was not because I met and got to know a lot of Muslims personally, although that did have some effect on my thinking. You know, I've gotten to know a lot of Muslims over the past few years, but none of them have spoken to me in great depth about politics. They occasionally give me their opinions about this or that, but none of them sat me down and said, okay, here's what's going on, or here's my political ideology, here's what I believe. They have talked to me quite a bit more about religion, actually, than politics, although even that subject doesn't usually come up in conversation, but only occasionally. So the reason why I became a supporter of the Palestinian cause was not because I was recruited by Muslims or Arabs or Middle Easterners in general. It was because of my own delving into the facts, and part of that did have something to do with the fact that I knew a lot of Muslims, and the reason why is because when I got to know a lot of Muslims in person, it became very clear to me that my idea of Muslims and Middle Easterners was totally insane, and that they were not the crazed killers, not the fundamentalists, not the terrorists that I had always believed they were. They were not subhuman, they were not evil or savage, they were totally normal, just like me. So then that sort of undermined the foundation of my understanding of the region, which was built on racism. Once I learned that Muslims were totally normal people, no more likely to be crazy or psychotic or criminal than anybody else, I started to look at things differently, and I started to do research on my own. And I looked on YouTube first. I found a couple of videos. From there, I watched a lot of other videos. I watched debates, and I watched dissertations by scholars, lectures by scholars on what's going on in the Middle East. Finally, I got some books by Israeli historians, and I started to read the Israeli historians, particularly the new historians, who have taken a different tack from historians in the past. So that is basically how I got into the issue and how I started to learn about the issue. I went to the electronic intifada a lot. I went to I read a lot, and listened to a lot of Ali Abu Nima, who is an incredibly straightforward scholar on the subject, and really is the Palestinian Martin Luther King Jr. Although he couldn't be compared to him directly, his rhetoric is very reminiscent of Dr. King, because it's so straightforward and so morally uncompromising and so hard to deny. Okay, so, but of course, not on the same level as King, because nobody has ever been like King, probably in the history of the world, but he is as close as you can get on this issue. And he reminds me of Dr. King. So that's kind of my education on the subject. Now, what is the actual situation that's going on. Okay, the actual situation is not really a conflict or a war per se. It's a crime. It's a crime being committed by the Zionist state and the Zionist ideologues against the Palestinian people, and to a lesser extent against the Jews, and, who are also being victimized in certain ways by this. It's not about Judaism versus Islam, and Judaism is not at fault. It's not the fault of Judaism that this is happening. It's not the fault of Islam that is happening. It's not the fault of the Palestinians that is happening. This is basically being caused by an ideology of colonization, conquest, and white supremacy, which is pretty much the same as any that you would have seen in the 18th or 19th centuries. The only difference is this is not the 18th or 19th century, it's the 20th century or the 21st century, and those types of ideologies of ethnic exclusivity and white supremacy just don't carry water anymore. Okay, so let's just think about, the fact, okay, there's a lot of things that are said about this conflict. The cause and of the conflict is religion, which it's not. Jews and Christians and Muslims were living in Palestine since biblical times, and since the advent of Islam, they've been living together there peacefully. So it's not a religious conflict, and it's a conflict that happened basically the same way as when the Native Americans started resisting the white settlers. It's the same dynamic. They resisted the white settlers because they realized that the white settlers were taking their land and they were going to be pushed out. That's the same reason why Palestinians started to resent the Zionists and started to fight them, not the Jews. Now, they often made a distinction between Jews and Zionist settlers. Even when there was a pogrom going on, or some kind of, in Hebron, there was a massacre that happened because they had a false rumor of Zionists murdering children. So when they actually went to massacre Zionists, they made a distinction and said, we don't want Jews. We don't want the Jews that live here, or Jews in general. We want these Zionists who've been murdering these children. And then they massacred a bunch of innocent people. Okay, but it wasn't about religion. It was a conflict over this ideology and this movement of settlement and colonization and dispossession. Okay, so and they'll say, okay, there was no Palestinian people, there was no Palestine. They'll say that it was a religious conflict from time immemorial. And they will pull up all of these different things. All of these things are totally irrelevant. They will talk about things that Palestinians have done in the past that were bad. Some of these things are true, some of them are not. Or people might talk about, things that Zionists have done in the past too. They've done a lot of bad things too. But all of that's totally irrelevant. It doesn't matter who did what in the past. It doesn't matter unless you want to just understand history, okay? And it doesn't matter whether Palestine existed or not, which it did. It doesn't matter, what the religions are. The only thing that matters is, okay, this is a crime being committed against Palestinians, and Palestinians are being denied their basic human rights. Okay, so if you have a state which is just for a certain type of people, it doesn't treat all other people equally. You can't have a white state for black people. It doesn't work that way. You can't have a Jewish state for Muslims. It doesn't work that way either. So all of the Palestinian refugees who have a right to return to their homes, they're being denied that right. And all of the people in the West Bank and Gaza are being victimized. And now it's just like if somebody was in the middle of burglarizing your home. What do? Do you sit down with the burglar and debate over whether or not they should burglarize you while they're carrying out your things, or do you call the police? That's what we're the Palestinians are dealing with, and we're saying to them, negotiate with the people that are carrying out your TV. They shouldn't do that. They should call the police, because it's not a conflict, it's a crime. Thanks for watching.